school shootings of all things, and I've talked about this often. The reality is every school shooter is on some kind of psychotropic drugs. That's just a fact of life. You know, the people on the left go, "Oh, don't stigmatize people with mental illness." It's like, no, we didn't have a problem with this because we've always had guns and been armed to the teeth since our country was founded. And it's only become a problem in the last few decades. And so something changed. And the only thing that changed is the psychotropic drugs that everybody's on, and the doctors prescribe like fucking, they give them out like Tic Tacs, which are delicious, by the way. And they're great, you know, good for your fresh breath if you get the mint ones. But, because what shooters that have lived after they've committed their acts have said that they felt like they were observing the crime happening. They didn't feel like they were committing it, like they were an observer of it. So they're totally detached emotionally. They literally feel nothing. And that's what the psychotropic drugs do, is it turns off a person's empathy and it turns off their emotions. And so they literally feel nothing, they observe it. Whereas a normal person would not want to do something to harm another human being like that. It would be just horrific for them. And plus, they don't want the legal consequences of that. But somebody that's on the drugs and has been propagandized, and the drugs turn off their emotions and their empathy. Like, if you guys have ever ridden go-karts anywhere, like, you'll notice that the go-kart's only going to go so fast. You know it can go faster, but they have what's called a governor on it. And the governor prevents the throttle from like going all the way as fast as it could be, because people will be getting fucked up otherwise. And so a person's emotions and empathy are basically their governor that keeps them from, you know, because everybody has crazy thoughts, but most people don't act upon them. But the person that's on psychotropic drugs and has mental health issues and has adopted some ideology because they believe the retards on TV and the news, then their emotions and their empathy are turned off. In other words, the governor is disconnected. And so it creates the conditions where some of those people, because millions and millions and millions of people are on these psychotropic drugs, a small percentage of them are going to act upon that when prompted by the media or streamers, like the guys like Destiny saying that we played some of those clips that conservatives should die and those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, he's a loser. Evil person.
He's a pasty dude with like little man boobs. And he talks so tough from behind his mic.
It's actually funny. His son's turned into a huge like Republican and hates his dad. Really based.
Yeah, men don't respect the fucking beta males.
Like,
So
yeah,
even women don't respect beta males. Well, let's roll the video, Chunkmeister.
52 years of documented school shootings in America, conducted by teenagers. 100% of them were on either an antidepressant or on a barbiturate drug for anxiety. And every one of these antidepressants, including Prozac, Zoloft, Xanax, you name them, all these anti-anxiety drugs and antidepressants, do you know every single one of them are published to increase the risk of suicide behavior and actions, and I quote, lead to violent and homicidal actions. 100% of all school shooters, for the documented 52 years of history, we've been tracking them and studying them, 100% of all the shooters were on drugs that are published and prescribed by your medical doctor, brought to you by CVS and Walgreens and others. 52 years of
52 fucking years. And so, the people on the left go, it's the guns. Like, no, it's the fucking psychotropic drugs. And if you try to take the guns of the people who know how to use the guns, you will not survive it. That's just a fact of life. You will not. You are going against the law, you're going against the Constitution, and you're going against the most dangerous, the most lethal men in the world. There are millions and millions of combat experienced veterans that are very patriotic that are just simply not going to give them up. You can try, but you will lose. And it's our divine right. Doesn't matter whether you believe in a God or not, or you're an atheist or not. The whole country, our republic, is founded on the premise that the creator said you're entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That means you have the natural right of self-defense. And if somebody tries to harm you or your family, you have every right to drop them. In Florida, we have castle doctrine. Somebody kicks your door in, and they have a weapon, you have every right to liquidate them at your front door or in your house. Doesn't matter where they are. If they come through your door with weapons, they are forfeiting their life. Now the family of that criminal might get some ambulance chasing dirtbag attorney who will probably sue you. If George Soros has been successful at getting a Marxist attorney general elected, they're going to come after you. And I have a video of the McCloskeys. Mr. McCloskey, if you guys remember the BLM riots in Minnesota, he was the famous guy that pointed his M4, M16 version at the crowd that was basically saying they were going to burn down his mansion that he and his wife spent millions of dollars restoring, and they had millions of dollars for the artwork and expensive things in there, and they had broken down his gate and were threatening to burn his house down. And he pointed his M16 civilian version, M4 style version, at the protesters, and his wife pointed a pistol which didn't have any ammunition in it. And they didn't fuck with his house. They didn't try to burn it down because, quite frankly, they didn't want to get shot. But you had a prosecutor who was left-leaning who got elected because she was supported by George Soros and the rest of his Marxist nutty group of people, and persecuted this guy. But luckily he was a millionaire and he was an attorney. But still, he just now got his fucking gun back after all these years. And so maybe, Chunky, you can kind of scroll that way and see where it is so we can see the video of him. Because I'd really like to do that since we're kind of on this topic. There it is. So you can blow that up. So that's the picture of him in his front yard. It's very famous. Most people hopefully should have seen it. But he was protecting, money that millions of dollars he invested in restoring this old mansion. It was like, overall, I think it was like 150 years old in a historic area of Minnesota. And the BLM savages were walking through their neighborhoods and burning shit down, burning buildings down. They broke through his gate, which was also an antique gate, and they wrecked it. And he and his wife came out and basically said, I will fucking shoot your ass if you try to damage my property or harm me or my wife. But because he pointed his gun at him, this fucking communist attorney general who was elected by George Soros, who's an ideologue, she wanted to teach him a lesson, like, how dare you have guns and use them. She's anti-gun, and she believes only the police should have guns, and so therefore she would have been much happier if he didn't use his gun and he and his wife would have been murdered and burned up in their house, because at least they didn't use a gun. But all he had to do was point his gun at these protesters, and they didn't fuck with him. And so here he is after 5 years. I've talked about this often because this was during the time that this stuff happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. He finally gets his rifle back. I think he had to plead to like a misdemeanor or something like that. Even an attorney, he still had to plead to something to avoid going to jail or just ridiculous expense. I would imagine the amount of money that he spent probably was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend himself. And that's the problem. It's like if you ever have, God forbid, you have to use a pistol or rifle to defend yourself or your family or your property, you got a leftist prosecutor, they're going to try to make an example out of you because they want to discourage other people from doing this. Because the communists, the Marxists, the state is Jesus, the state is God. And therefore, you have no rights. They don't care that the second line of the Declaration of Independence says your rights come from the Creator. They don't give a fuck. They vote their feelings and they vote their ideology. The letter of the law does not matter. So, Chucky? 5 fucking years they held this man's weapon that he was legally and constitutionally entitled to. It just shows how the wheels of justice are so fucking slow in how they turn. They disarmed him and his wife for 5 fucking years. What were they supposed to use in the meantime? Hopefully he was able to go and buy other guns. But if they say you're not allowed to, and it's in the background check system and you don't pass, you can't get a gun. You can't buy a replacement. That's unconscionable. It's unconstitutional. It's dangerous. It puts his life at risk because he and his wife were made famous because of the video. And so that prosecutor, that fucking that treasonous commie prosecutor, created the conditions where he could have been, somebody could have done to him what was done to Charlie Kirk. And that's why they do it. They try to make an example out of you and make it easy for the criminals that have weapons to use them against you. Because he was guilty of wrongthink. He was guilty of exercising his constitutional rights.